At some point in the digital age of boss babes, new money, and ambitious rookies, we stopped consulting our village's wisest. Women have been the heartbeat of the world within their respective communities, workforces, and families since the dawn of time. They are the magic makers, the peacemakers, and the ass kickers. Let's celebrate them with the Matriarchy Party.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Matriarchy Party. It's a Saturday when we're recording this episode, so really happy weekend on a Tuesday for you when you're hearing this. We're back with a very long-awaited interview here today from the one and only, my bestie for over 15 years, the incomparable Chelsea Goodson. To me, Chelsea basically invented influencer marketing. She's been creating content and sharing her and her sweet family's life online since she was just a teen. Today, she's the head of creator economy at Find Your Influence, a cloud-based application that enables brands to manage digital influencer campaigns from start to finish. With over a decade of experience in influencer marketing and digital media, Chelsea's career has seen the growth of online influencers and the mass inclusion of them in almost in all digital media budgets today. Chelsea's career has seen the growth of online influencers and the mass inclusion of them in almost all digital media budgets today. Chelsea and I met in around 2008-ish or so when I was living in LA and had a recycled bullet brass jewelry line. Shout out to Trash and Treasures / Dolly and Boy, had a couple names, where I sent her cool Phoenix living stylish blogging self my jewelry and was honored when she and her then boyfriend, now husband Scott, both wore them, took photos, put them on the internet like a girl can dream. We then became pen pals. Can you even? How adorable are we? Writing about our favorite emo music, denim, coffee spots, and sending each other mixed CDs. We planned the Arizona Blogger Conferences together, along with our Phoenix Style Collective, buds, Kara, Josh, and Catherine, who you met a few episodes back. We've been thick as thieves and inseparable ever since. We're so different, but so very much the same human, and I love that about us. Now we both live in Arizona, and we're basically doing all the same things we used to write in our pen pals letters, but in real life, in our 30s. She's also an incredible self-taught ceramicist, now owns a vintage jewelry company. Shout out to Family Jewel. Find him on Instagram. She lives with her husband now, not now, but now husband, as I said before, Scott. Shout out to Citizen HG if you need some amazing, locally made home goods. And her two young sons, my honorary nephews, and beloved cat. Bestie, I love you so much. Welcome to the party.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Oh my gosh, this is such a long time coming. I'm so excited.
I know. It's been months and months in the making.
Yes. We're so busy, you know, getting on the same schedule as somebody who's like, can you do a weekday? And you're like, no, I have a real life job and children. Why would I do that? So it's a matriarchy party. Who are we talking about today? Who's your matriarch?
Talking about my grandma.
Grandma. Mom's side, dad's side?
Mom's side.
What's her name?
Dorothy.
Dorothy.
Yes.
We love her.
Yeah.
I didn't get to meet Dorothy.
Yeah.
But we love her. We love all grandmas. I can't wait to hear more about her.
Absolutely.
Let's get into it.
All right.
Well, I always start this thing off with when we think of a matriarch, we think of a woman who's the head of their family, tribe, or organization. When in your life did you feel like you had to demonstrate those traits, whether by necessity or not?
That's a great question. I feel like pretty early on, and not to say that I didn't have that support. My grandmother, who's my matriarch, she moved to Arizona from Washington State when I was around 2 to help raise me. And I mean, just growing up, she was always there. My mom was always there. She was working. They were, raising me alongside my father, of course. And pretty early on, I knew, I'm going to step into this role one day. So I'm going to learn all of these things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I feel like early on, I was very aware that that was going to be my role.
And you're like, I got to learn everything I can because I'm going to have to do this one day.
Yeah. And bless my mom. I mean, she was there. She was working. She had a lot going on as well. So not to say that she wasn't able to fulfill that role because she did. But for me, I just knew this is going to be, my role one day. Yeah, my family. I'm going to be the one who's kind of going to step in.
Yeah. Well, and because your parents have been business owners since, your whole life?
Yeah, my whole life.
And so, yeah, that makes sense. I always say, well, it takes a village, they say. Because it needs, even if you have very loving, supportive, present two parents, there's a lot going on to just with one child. You were an only child.
Right. Yeah. Only child.
But still a lot to coordinate and finagle. Right. So that's so cool that your grandma got to move then to Arizona to help.
Yep.
Help support and raise you.
Yeah, she had worked at a hospital previously and just decided at 60 it was time to retire and come down to where the weather was warmer and help raise me. I was her only grandchild. My mom has a brother and he didn't end up having any kids of his own. So for her, she was
all about you.
Yeah, it was all about me always.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. You must have had like so much quality time, just the two of you then.
Yes, a lot of quality time. Because my parents traveled so much as well. I would stay with her, during the school year. Even in the summer, she would come with us. And then when I got a little bit older, she would stay home in the heat and would come visit us on occasion. And then I would come back down when school started. My parents would come home a month or two later. And then same when school was ending, they would leave about a month or so before it actually ended. So it was just her and me for quite often.
Do you have any like a very vivid memory of like an adventure you guys got up to or like, we always did this whenever we were together. We like made cookies or something.
Oh, we always went to Denny's.
Oh yeah. I love it.
We lived across the street from a Denny's and the building is still there. And I have very vivid memories of being in there. There was once, a Target, a Wendy's, the shopping center that was very lively and it was right across the street from us. So we used to walk over there almost every day, it seemed.
I love.
So we always had chicken fried steak and Diet Coke.
Oh, what's wrong with that? It's a great order.
Yeah.
How cute.
Yeah.
And just like see what you could get into in that Target shopping center.
Yeah. Which was a lot for me. I feel like I always wanted to be in there. I always wanted to buy a CD.
Of course.
Yeah.
Totally. I feel like that's a dream day with grandma, honestly, is like going out to eat and doing a little shopping.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So sweet. Do you feel like sometimes that generation, it's just so they're effortlessly like mothering and tending to others? Do you feel like she was somebody, obviously she had her career of her own.
Yeah.
Was she, I want to say like, is she a feminist grandma? And then, or like she like very empowering and like talking to you about your goals and your future all the time?
Yeah. So my grandma was one of 8. And her parents, they were, I'm trying to think, originally from the Midwest, moved to Canada after they were married and started having kids there. They were working on in a kitchen line for a threshold, which I actually don't really know much about, but they were working and living in Canada and began to have kids. And my grandma was the second to youngest. So she had a bunch of older sisters and older brothers and then one little brother. And I feel like she had a lot of, that matriarchy already in her because of her sisters and her mom. Her mom was very gung-ho, did everything herself. When they moved to Canada, they moved into a home that was, I think it was abandoned for a while, and she redid it. She redid the whole electricity in there, the plumbing.
Her mom did?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was a part of like them moving to this specific house because I think it was a lot less expensive, but she had to put a lot of work into it. So she grew up with her mom as her role model. And then, of course, had all of her siblings. And then the youngest that was born was my Uncle George. And I feel like that was, from what I hear, that was her baby. He was a couple years younger than her. And for her, she got to tend to him as all the siblings did to her. And
it's just a natural progression.
Right. So then her family moved back down to Washington State after she was a little bit older and grew up there. That was in the mid-30s. So I think time was definitely tough. Had brothers that went off to war. Wow. And for her, she found her way to a carnival to make money with her siblings. She went with one of them specifically, and they said, we need to, make an income. It was probably late teens after she had been through school. And from there, she stayed for many years. She actually had, I feel like, quite a career there that she didn't often want to talk about when she got older. So I feel like she's up there listening to me. And
she's like, why'd you tell everybody that? These are my secrets.
Right. It's funny, actually. I saw a picture yesterday that I had printed and framed for my mom. So the photos of my grandma in her costume. So, back in the day, in the 40s, I would say with carnivals, they did acts, like people on freak shows, things like that. And she was in a wrestling act. And
Along with her siblings then? Or just with other people?
I think just with other people. Yeah, just with other people. But she had, I have a picture of
That's
her.
so cool. I wanna see the
her
picture.
costume. Yeah, I'll have to show you. So I saw it yesterday and I was like, oh, okay, she knows. Like she knows that I'm going to talk about this. And I'm sure she would love and also not love that I was mentioning this. But
How awesome.
yeah, she was, you know, from I think an early age, she was very independent, of course, had all the siblings and everything. But, you know, grew up, went into this carnival business, ended up meeting her future spouse. She actually had, you know, quite a life in terms of like the chapters. I mean, we all have different chapters in life that I think we live. So from the carnival, she met her then husband. She was, you know, married for a couple of years. Her and her husband had a son, and then the son and the husband actually both ended up passing away in a car accident in the 50s, in the early 50s. So that really changed like her whole life. And for me growing up, it was not something we really talked about. It was something that I think really obviously sat with her, as I think it would for many people in such a hard way. And a handful of years later, she ended up meeting my grandpa, also at a carnival, and had my mom and her brother a couple of years later. So she, you know, went through many years of, I think, you know, wanting that family and obviously experiencing a lot of loss. And that made her very strong and I think changed her perspective in terms of like what she wanted and how she wanted to go about it. So she had my mom and my brother, and my grandparents actually split when my mom and her brother were very young. So she was very independent, you know, got a job, was working, was doing anything that she could to support them. My grandfather was around, but, you know, they're both living their separate lives. He went on to remarry. I got a bonus grandma, which was wonderful. Aww. And yeah, she just continued to work. She worked in a hospital for a long time. She did I guess janitorial work. She did a lot of different things there, but she wasn't on the medical side of things at least. So worked there for many years. And then, you know, up until the time when my mom had me.
Chelsea came along.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, I mean, it's no surprise to me or anyone who knows you probably that you came from such a lineage of strong, independent women, business owners too. Yeah, like, I feel like the grit and hustle, I mean, in the 30s and 40s, I mean, little kids and teenagers were working, like you said, going off to war, and it was just a different, hard time. But like that, she's just going to go and like, I need a job, and I'm going to be a performer, and that's that, and just went and took it.
Yep.
And I mean, your parents are like that too. Your mom finding your dad, who's a similar like entrepreneurial spirit and vibe, and them like creating their company. And then now you and Scott, I feel like have many ventures going at.
Yes.
So I feel like that's just in the blood.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like we're just serial entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Which is a good and a bad thing in the same way. But yeah, definitely followed in that perspective. My grandma had other businesses that she ran too while she was
in her free time.
Yeah, in her
just
free
so much
time
free
that
time.
she had. Yeah, but yes, definitely followed in a similar path in terms of I think figuring out what I wanted, and she taught me so much. She was from an early age telling me, okay, you have to go to college, you have to get a degree. For her, that was such a big thing.
Yeah.
She encouraged that with both of my mom and my uncle as well. And that was the ultimate. That's what she wanted to see me do.
Oh, that was especially at that time. I mean, my parents, I guess that came from my grandparents too, of just, you got to go to college. I don't care what you're doing, but you're going to college. Yeah. And that seems to be, at that time, it was so necessary to make anything of yourself was that college degree. Yeah. Whether now, I don't know, the world's changed in a lot of different ways. I feel like you can find a path with experience and like a can-do attitude, but which I mean, you always have in the history of humans. But that is funny, the pressure put. So I'm sure she's like, yeah, great. Yeah. You're going to school.
Yeah. She didn't even care what I did. She just wanted me to be happy, but she knew that was important.
Yeah. So like, I don't care, but you're also doing this. So
yeah, she felt like it was one of those things you had to, check off the box.
And how many degrees did you end up getting?
2. I guess 3 technically. I got an associate's and then
I feel like that's 3.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
Got my bachelor's. She was here. She got to be there for my graduation.
Yeah.
And then it was interesting timing. She passed right before I got my master's, and it was actually the month before I was supposed to take this big test that really decided if I graduated or not. And I feel like, man, this is the timing of things. That's how life works, right? You know, it's kind of things happen in a way that you're not expecting or you wouldn't want them to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, that pushed me. I had a full month where I was like, okay, I have to really focus. Like I have to do this for her. I have to graduate. I have to walk through this.
And she was with you, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
And use that grief as fuel.
Right.
To crush it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
So 2 months later, I graduated. And right after that, she had always asked me, because my husband, Scott, and I had been together for quite a few years at that point. And she was like, are you going to get married? And me being just shy and like not wanting to talk about it much. I'm like, yeah, we'll get married one day. We got engaged right before we graduated. Or I guess before I
That was such an exciting time. I remember all that.
Yeah, you were there for all of that.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh, so she was definitely, it was after she passed you got engaged.
Yeah.
I think, when you lose somebody that's so close to you, I think it puts everything in perspective too. You're just like, wait, why are we waiting? We want to be a family or whatever. I mean, you knew that was always going to happen, but everything kind of clicked into place really quickly.
Yeah, it did. It really did. There was a lot of movement right after she passed, but I think that was just her way of getting things in order of how she wanted them.
It sounds like, I mean, she asked for what you want.
Right.
She did?
Yeah.
What do you think? You've had so many success milestones in your young age. What do you think success meant for you when you were in your early 20s and now, or just how has that viewpoint progressed?
Yeah. I mean, in my early 20s, I wanted to be a music journalist. I feel like any person who watched Almost Famous when it came out, right, wanted to work for Rolling Stone and being a music journalist. And for me, that's what I wanted to do.
William Miller.
Right.
That's who we're going to be.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to be writing, have all my bylines and multiple magazines and I ended up going in a different direction at the time because I was already blogging, and I realized I really don't want to work on an article that will take months and months to publish when I could just publish something
right
so
now
quickly on my own.
That's so true.
Yeah. So I think it shifted pretty quickly, and I was working at a marketing agency, and I wanted to be that corporate girl that just kept kind of climbing the ladder and moving on to the next position or whatnot. And I think I always had something in me that knew, okay, I also really want to be happy, because I saw a lot of people who weren't happy in their careers.
Maybe they got that career accomplishment, but they weren't happy otherwise.
Right. And my parents, they had always owned their own business, and I saw the struggles that came with that, but I also knew that brought them a lot of freedom in terms of getting to spend more time with me, travel. So I wanted that too. So I think I kind of took both sides. There was part of me that was like, okay, I feel like this is the next checkbox. I want to keep learning, keep growing, going up in my career. And, that was 10 plus years ago. And nowadays it's changed. I still think that that's important, but I feel like I'm more in a space now of where I have 2 little boys and I want to spend the most time that I can with them. So if I can balance the two, work and have that career fulfillment, but also get to spend as much time as I can and do all the things that you do with a 9-month-old and a 5-year-old, then that's really what the success is. I think being able to have that time versus, climbing the corporate ladder.
Totally. Yeah. Priorities have just shifted.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's all we all want is the balance between just if your career aspirations and having a semblance of sanity and personal life and rest and recharging. And maybe that's just getting older too, but it's so funny. I just found this out. I feel like maybe we've talked about it already, but Almost Famous being one of my top, my top 4, if we were going to letterbox it here, was so, I feel like all of us either watched any movie in the 2000s, 13 going at 30 and wanted to go the fashion journalist direction, or Almost Famous, music writer traveling with a band on the road. And it just came to me. I was like, why is my company and career so thrilling to me? And I'm like, I am the William Miller of creative content capture.
You are.
I'm not with bands. Most of the time I'm with actors and filmmakers, but I'm traveling with bands on the road. Mm-hmm. All of the actors are not now, but definitely the next city. Just come with us to the next city and getting what I need and building the relationships and all the personalities and the just interpersonal relationships and connections and networking that goes on behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I always feel that after all the planes at that part when Zooey Deschanel says to Patrick Fugit, she's a flight attendant. And she's like, I have all these, I haven't seen you in so long. Right. Where do you want to go? Anywhere in the world. Where do you want to go? Mm-hmm. And then it pans to him laying flat in his bed. And I'm like, how many times? I'm like, nobody could taunt me with any travel trip, any way in the world. And I'm like, all you ever want to be is home in your own bed with your people, just in your own pillow. And yeah.
That's
so
beautiful.
I'm like, man, what a
that.
cool full circle, and like a different way. But I was like, this was a manifestation. I wasn't even thinking that this was a possibility, and it wasn't in so many ways, but that's so magical.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, it's meant to be. Well, describe a time where asking for what you want paid off.
Yeah, that's a great question. Man. Well, I mean, I've had a lot of opportunities within my professional development and growth to, ask for, job opportunities, moving up the next step, whatever it may be. And I feel really lucky in that I've had two really wonderful female co-founders who have kind of been there to support me along the way. And I'd be lying if I said, they were huge catalysts in that and supporting me and championing me, making sure that I was moving on to that next step. So I want to acknowledge that. But I feel like most recently, in wanting to spend more time in the jewelry world, I have, wanted to be in that space for a long time. I love jewelry. I love vintage. Everything that comes along with that. I love it. And for a while there, I was trying to explore options of kind of getting into that space. And I didn't really have any connections at that point. And I remember I had a call with someone and she was, I asked for help and she basically said no. I didn't feel like it was, I'm not trying to bring younger people into this industry. I don't want more people into it. It was a very interesting call. It was not expecting how.
There's enough pie for all of us.
Right. I wasn't expecting that be how it went.
Yeah.
But I think actually it was a good turning point because I realized from that, I do not want to be that person.
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to be her. I do not want to ever make someone feel like that there's not enough space for them. So I took that, I was pregnant during the time. And so, I had a lot else going on. I was, getting ready to have my son and spent that time and kind of, focusing on what I needed to, but took that fuel shortly after I had my son and said, okay, I have this family friend. He's a jeweler. He's in Vegas. I'm going to convince my parents to go with me to Vegas to see him and say, let me dig through all of your stuff so I can source and start selling vintage. So we did that. And I asked and he said, yes. And then somehow it quickly escalated. And this family friend introduced me to someone else who introduced me to someone else as well that was in New York. I have very vivid memories of being on a FaceTime with an individual and him saying, okay, you're at 47th Street, right? This is where you need to go. And he walked me around until I got to the right person.
That's wild.
Yeah. It was really it was meant to be kind of moment. And it wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have started with that one, like, can we go and see him? Yeah. The ask, can we get this sorted? And now, I'm trying to kind of figure out with my timing, where do I want to focus right now?
Totally.
So with little kids, it's always a balance. And for me, I want to spend more time in the jewelry space, but I'm also kind of trying to soak in those newborn baby years and months that I'm currently in right now with my youngest. But I know that I have that connection now and that it's there. And I feel
in you, and you're like, this is something I want to explore. And
right. And I feel really good about having someone that I could go to and knowing now that when that time feels right, they'll be there and that I can go back to them and start exploring this a bit more. But long story short, I asked to go.
I
to
want
go
all the
visit this
context.
family friend. Yeah, and
that's so cool.
It started something that I had really wanted for many years and had someone specifically tell me no. So I just found another route.
Well, and I think that was so on your heart and mind. I mean, we've loved fashion and jewelry and just like the art of getting dressed for as long as I've known you. It just has grown from band tees and skinny denim and Vans into today. Still a lot of that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was something you even like articulated or said out loud, or maybe like there was something within you that you're like, I want to do that. But it was a quiet little voice. And then you're like, it got to a point where it was very quick. You're like, I want to do it. I'm going here. And I was like, before one night, you're like, what do you think about this name? And then it was happening. It was so exciting. And like, I feel like you were so prepared, or you were just like, I'm doing it. No more excuses. Let's go. But
yeah, I feel like it wasn't as prepared enough to know all of the bits and pieces. I had a lot of help, like from this family friend. He kind of taught me what I needed to know, the basics about buying. And then, this other individual that I ended up meeting, he kind of shared with me more. And I think that's really how you learn. You hear others who are in the space.
To inspire you and mentor you. Totally.
Right. And to relate this all back to my matriarch, my grandma was always a big jewelry lover. She had a local jeweler who would make her different pieces. And I feel like...
And now we have ours.
Right.
Yvette's. Yes. We love you.
Yvette's. Yes.
We love you so much.
Yeah.
We're there every month.
Every month at least.
Collecting gold things in Phoenix. It's inside the Food City on McDowell. And you can get all gold. And they make custom things, and they've fixed a lot of things. Anyways, we love our Yvette's fam. Had to have a shameless plug there. Not sponsored. We just love them. So yeah, I know. I remember when I first took you there, you're like, my grandma had her place.
Yes.
And like, this feels like now this is my place.
Yeah.
So like she was always collecting pieces, and you probably grew up with her treating herself to little things too.
Right. And she would buy me pieces here or there, or knew, you know, she would share that, oh, this is going to be something that I'll give you one day. And, my mom's dad was also a jeweler. He had a jewelry business. He didn't make anything himself. He only sold Black Hills Gold. I feel like that was very popular in like the 70s and 80s.
Cool.
But I feel like that piece of her that I know she would be really excited about because she loved everything. I have all of her jewelry and I go through it often and kind of like, you know, I can connect it back now to my style and the things that I like, but they're always like good resemblance of her and, you know, what she was into. And whenever I wear them, I think of her.
And I'm sure when you were just a little girl, you're like, oh, this is like too mature. Or like, you know, you want like costume jewelry when you're a teenager even. And now you're like, how special. I have these charms and these things that like are classic pieces. And Family Jewel, it's spelled J-U-E-L.
Yes.
And that's the last name of who?
That's my grandpa's first name. Yeah.
First name.
Yeah, Jewel Leiber. Yeah.
Wow.
So inspired by him and my grandmother, of course, but Family Jewel felt relevant.
It's so perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect in every way. I love that.
Thank you.
I think that is so special. I can't believe it's all full circle. I'm just listening. And just that, not listening, I'm you know, just taking it all in. How meant to be things are when you don't even realize what you're building on inside your soul.
Right.
That's very cheesy, but it's true. Sometimes you don't even know whether you're trying to or not, you're manifesting. So you're manifesting it. And that one no from that, I'm like, wow, hater. What are you doing now being such a hater?
It was rough.
But like, I know I'm fueled by spite for people who have wronged me. So I'm like, I'm sure that'll just lit more of a fire that you were like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'll take your no and watch me.
Yep.
And now you have so many cool mentors that are like excited to welcome you into the fold and like tell you about things and probably their craft and business that they've been in for how many years and like to see the new generation. So it was like you had to like kiss some mentor frogs and then you found now the right one. So when it's the right time, we're all trying to find that balance of like where you're pouring your energy. We only have so much time in a day, so much mental bandwidth. And so it's fun and exciting for you to like start dabbling and like seeing where you want to, but then when the time is right, really blow it out. But obviously you're just baby children. That takes up a lot of your life.
Yes.
Just parenting right now.
Yes.
But it's cool that you can just do 4 full-time jobs at a time. Like, wow, all of us get stretch out and batter up because you're doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, let's talk more about Grandma. What do you think like the defining moments of her career and life or her biggest dream and goal were?
Yeah. Well, I really do think she wanted to be a mother. I think she wanted to have children. Obviously, she went through a big loss, and I think that really changed her perspective in life. But I do think that she wanted to be a mother. She wanted to grow a family. My mom's dad and my grandma were actually never married. She wanted to, I think, in her heart and soul, make sure that she always had full access to her children, if that makes sense. I think parents go through divorce and, often that becomes a point of like tension where you have to separate your time. But I think back in that day, at least, there wasn't a lot of, government involved. So my grandma was like, if we're not married, then
they can't tell me anything.
Right. Yeah. And she got to make the decision. So obviously being a mother was really big for her. But aside from that, I mean, she lived so many different lives.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like she was doing whatever she needed to do to.
Yeah.
Very resilient.
Yeah. I wish I had a better answer for you though, in terms of like outside being a mother, because I do think that that's enough. I do think that some women, that is what their focus is. And not to say like she did so many other things.
Yeah.
But I think that was really what
she was
wanted.
Multi-hyphenate. She had so much to her. And all moms do.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get that takes up so much of you physically and just emotionally and the well-being of humans. And there's a lot of pressure.
Right.
So having time for anything else, it seems impossible, at least to me as someone who's not a mom to humans. So I can imagine you're like, she did so many other things. That's not, and not to say like, oh, she was just a mom. I hate using the word just, and women use it and it's stupid. But so she was so many things.
Yeah, she was a lot of things. And I think during those different chapters, it was kind of figuring out what suited her then and what she wanted to do. And then, you know, with me, obviously she was helping raise me and, you know, did all of the normal household things that I think at least back in that point, people might expect of women.
Sure.
Nowadays, I think there's a bit more of a different perspective here, but
responsibility divide as far as managing the home goes.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. But she found her joys. She loved to do puzzles. She was a big reader. She wanted to learn how to play backgammon. She did all sorts of things to, I think, make greater connection with her community. She went to her local senior citizen community.
Cute.
And spent time there and just try to make real friends and connections and, I don't know, just find other ways to fulfill her as she was like, I think, moving out of that time with me where I was, I didn't.
More independent and you didn't need as much care maybe.
Right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
That should inspire us all. I feel like I know every few years, I feel like I'm a new woman and I'm constantly evolving, and every human is hopefully evolving in some ways, whether personally or professionally or both. But I think that's such a good reminder because then she was doing all that after her 60s.
Right.
And moving here to Arizona.
Yeah. She
and
was
so like just
in her like mid to late 70s at that point.
Gotta learn. See, you're not too late out there. It's always about timing, and it's never too late to just start learning new skills and games and making new friends. And that's so hopeful and cool.
Yes, absolutely. There's always opportunity out there, always time.
What do you admire most about her?
How strong she was. I mean, obviously she went through a lot of trials and tribulations, but she was just a strong woman. She could do anything. Like she could handle anything. I think I have moments often where I'm like, oh, this is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot going, a lot with 2 kids and work, but she did all of that and more on her own. And sometimes I think about that. I'm like, I don't know if I could keep doing this. Like, this is tough. But if she did it, surely I can figure it out. Well,
you are doing it.
Thank you.
I mean, I think we're all in private moments like going, what the F? And like, how can anybody do all of this? And then not presenting, you're just as cool as a cucumber and have it all under control and have a plan. We love a plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that a lot about grandmas, like, a lot of women don't have the choice but to figure it out.
Right.
And it's a privilege to have the support and an active partner in building a life. But I don't know. I think about, do you think moms and grandmas, I just know like with my mom, it couldn't have been, or grandmas, also resilient and strong are the words that people use to describe their matriarchs.
Yeah.
90% of the time here. And I think about, I'm like, maybe women are just better at being actors. I don't think they want their kids to see them suffer. Very true. I know my mom like puts on her poker face and I'm like, no, but how are you really?
Yeah.
We're all in our 30s now. You can be real, like a real human.
Yeah.
But so stoic, so strong and so resilient. And you just figure it out. And like, I think that's just in nature.
Right.
Like the will to survive. I'm sure there's something in there with DNA, but which is still like, I don't know, you don't ever want to see. Ideally, you're protecting your kids and letting them be kids. So they're not seeing you struggle and you're not seeing mom and dad don't know every single thing. We've never done this before or been a human either. Like I've never been this age before now. But yeah, I mean, resilient, strong women.
Yeah. I feel like maybe nowadays it's there's a bit more of like transparency in that. I think with the rise of, open conversations around mental health and therapy, that is opening up within the home too.
Good point.
My grandma was always very strong and generally very stoic. I think in her later years, maybe she was a bit more open with me. I was older. I was in my 20s then. And she kind of like let me see her vulnerability, which I thought was beautiful because it kind of led me into realizing that it's okay. There are definitely moments where my kids see me and I'm not at my best, but I think that's okay. And they're humans too. They're experiencing those things and sharing that emotion with us. And I want to make sure that they feel comfortable doing that. And sometimes the best way to do that is by showing that you yourself feel that as well.
100%. more vulnerability for everyone. And I think that's what I totally meant was for better or worse, the matriarchs, people that came before us, like it wasn't as welcomed.
Right.
Like I think especially for men, like emotions, you're not even allowed to have them generations past. And like sharing about your problem. I mean, that's just why, like in a society, at least in America, it's like, how are you doing? Fine. How are you? Like nobody's really like, but how are you really? And this whole mental health revolution has opened doors for vulnerability. And I mean, I think especially with millennials and beyond, or younger, I should say, are now like allowing that and like setting boundaries and protecting themselves in a way that like, I'm sure like older generations like, oh, back in my day, in some ways. I mean, there are like pros and cons to every evolution of societal norms, I'm sure.
I actually had a conversation about something very similar with one of Scott's great aunts. So my boys' great aunts, which was so interesting. But she's very open in terms of generations today are very different, and there's a lot more opportunity to be more vulnerable and transparent. And she really encouraged me to make sure that I was allowing space for that within my children's lives in the best way. She wasn't in any way
trying to tell you how to mother.
Right,
okay,
right.
Good.
She was just being open in terms of, in my day, it wasn't as easy to walk through this or to be able to showcase this type of emotion.
To keep it private and deal with it by yourself.
Right, right. Or even holding, I think, children to a different standard. You can, I feel like we always want our kids to just be kids, but I think nowadays we can realize that they're all different and unique in their own ways, and we don't have to put them into a box or tell them they can't do this or that. We can really allow for them to explore that a bit more than I think we were allowed to at their age.
100%. I could see that. Of just kids were able to be kids, but like there was order and there was like serious household figures. And I don't know. I just think now even just there's so much openness and just like letting to explore and just that I think is really cool.
Yeah, me too.
I like that. What is the best advice that you ever received or something that stuck with you that your matriarch told you?
Stay in school.
That worked out.
Yeah, I feel like that was such a big thing. I mean, obviously nowadays, I agree with you. I think there's a shift in terms of like the necessity for a degree. I do think it's still very important because that's unfortunately a societal norm that we have. But for her, I mean, stay in school, but she wanted to see me succeed. So just in that and knowing, you need to be prepared to take that next step, be in a position where you can handle it on your own. So stay in school, but also just be mindful of like where you want to go, what you want to do, just have a plan, I suppose. For her, I mean, there were moments in her life where I don't think she was able to have the opportunity to have a plan. So as much as you can have a plan, at least what you want to do long-term, I think was important. Yeah. And so nowadays, I mean, I have goals and ideas on things that I want to do in different stages of life. And I think that's really exciting and will allow me to, be in a place when I'm older and not feeling like, my kids are out of school now. Like, what do I do? Or I'm an empty nester. What's next?
It's going to catch you off guard or anything. Yeah. You're going to be looking ahead.
Right. I think I'll have a plan of what I want to do when I'm a little bit older, which I'm excited about.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited to do it with you.
Yeah. Likewise.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about, I have some rapid fire for you.
Okay. Go for it.
So we kind of talked about like jewelry in specific, but because I usually ask if there's a song or a beauty tip or piece of jewelry that makes you think of her. But like, is there something specific?
Yeah, I have a ring. I actually don't have it on right now where it will fit me again one day in the future. But I wore it for many years and it just says love on it. It's a very simple gold band that she gave me. I think there's even a piece for a diamond in there that it's missing. And for me, I mean, it's, what it's worth isn't, what I think about. It's really that she gave it to me, that she purposely picked it out for me. And it's just, I have her with me always, as I always do. But in specific in that ring, I feel like wearing it makes me feel closer to her.
I love that. Yeah. That's so sweet. I was just thinking about a charm bracelet my grandma gave me one day. I was like, I gotta bring that out.
Oh, yeah.
I love that
too.
What's one word to describe your matriarch?
I know I already said strong, but I feel like that's enough. I mean, strong, definitely. And she was very creative. I feel like creativity also nowadays is viewed differently. I think back then you had to be very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Scrappy.
Yeah, scrappy. And I feel like there are a lot more opportunities nowadays to kind of explore that creativity versus just being so like, this is what I have to do. This is the next step. And I think she had a lot of that in her. So scrappy, creative, strong.
I don't think like our grandmas had like hobbies or like creative endeavors in the way that like.
Right. They didn't have even the time to do it.
Yeah, the time. It was like, we got to do what gets done. I mean, my great grandma was a dairy farmer, and it's like everything revolved around the dairy farm. There wasn't like she was watercoloring in her free time. Like, so I'm like, there's a privilege in being able to explore your creative passions.
Yeah. I wish I gave you a couple words, and I wish I had more than one, but I feel like strong.
No, I'm just asking for one. Yeah. So whatever comes, strong and creative. When's the last time you did something just for fun?
Well, today, I mean, I'm speaking toward the future. We're going and taking a jewelry making class together, which I'm really excited about.
I'm so excited. We've been talking about doing it forever. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It really is full circle with our jewelry conversation and moment in our lives. Do you think it's possible to do it all? Do you think your matriarch did?
Yeah. I always like to say you can do anything, but not everything. Mm-hmm. So as much as I do think that particularly women take on a lot, in many instances, the most in a home. And not to say, I mean, I know we both have very supportive partners and they handle a lot of the home load, the mental load, for
just
me,
support in a huge way.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think, I think you can do, like I said, everything. You can do anything, but not everything.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to, I have things that I want to do in my life and I'll have a time when I get to do them. But now I'm picking a couple of things that I'm going to do so I can spend my time and enjoy there. And then when I'm ready to move on to those next steps, then I will do those things. So yes, but in time.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I keep going back to, I think it's a pie chart. Like, and right now, like most of your big pieces of pie are like, you love your job and your friendships and your businesses, but you're like, my children are the biggest piece of my pie, your family and like building that and being present. Yeah. So it's like, I can do all these things, but maybe they're just getting like a bite of pie. They're not getting a whole slice or they're just out of the mixture of the recipe right now. And you'll come back to that recipe later.
Yeah. I always wanted to be a mom. So having that opportunity now and then having the opportunity to have, a second chance as well. Cause my boys, there's a bit of an age gap there. And, I think we had always hoped we'd have another one, but, life kind of came in the way as it does. And I wasn't sure. I mean, I'm an only child, so I thought maybe we'll just have one and kind of made that split decision, just not split, but it felt like a bit split decision to have another child. And now I get to relive those things that I feel like when I was a first time mom, I was so stressed about. And nowadays I'm like, oh, it's so fine. It's a lot more chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's how, because it's the great unknown of what you're getting into.
Right.
Well, and I just remember thinking, like when you were talking about having a second baby, and I thought it was such a breath of fresh air because every mom I know is so planned, prepared. They've thought about it. They've read all the books. They've done all of that mental labor before the labor. And I just thought it was so great for you to be vulnerable. And we can edit this out depending on how vulnerable you want to be.
No, not at all.
But just about like, you're like, I don't know. I mean, in theory, I want to have a second one, but like now, am I ready? Like, so I just thought those conversations are so important just to talk it through. And I'm like, nobody's going to know except for you. And sometimes it's just like,
I think
you just got to go in for it. But
I think people just accept that it's the norm to have more than one child.
Yeah.
And then being an only child myself, I realized that, from what my parents have shared, they did it purposefully. And it was because they knew that they couldn't handle another one.
They only had so much bandwidth.
Right. And they wanted, to create a specific life for me as much as they could. And I understood and appreciated that. As much as part of me wanted a sibling, I think, growing up.
You're like, I don't get it when I was a kid and playing by myself. But.
Yeah. And then for us, I mean, we had our first son at 30. And I thought being younger, that we would have a child earlier. We had been married almost 5 years at that point. And I didn't feel ready until then. And then when we were thinking about having another one, obviously the pandemic hit and was very, scary and interesting time. And for me, I did not want to be in a place where I had to have a child in that type of environment, even knowing that we didn't know how long it would last. But then also like, do I want to handle like more? Do I want to add on more? Do I want to let this kind of interfere with like my older son as well. I mean, as being an only child, I think that's something I have the privilege of thinking of. Like, I know
how are they going to feel?
Right. Like I know how I feel. And my husband is one of 4. So for him, he always kind of, felt like, oh, it's fine. Kids will be kids. They'll get along and it'll work out great. But I do feel very, perfect and good. And now in our decision to have a second child, and he's brought so much joy into our life. And really there has been many signs of telling me like it was very much meant to be.
Totally.
So for that, I will be very grateful for.
Yeah. But it's okay to think things through and not be 100% sure on things. Like
absolutely.
Sometimes like you don't know until you're like, oh, it was the right time.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see the forest from the trees or whatever the expression is.
Yeah. Even just like being pregnant again, I was 34 and I was like, oh, do I want to do this again? Not to say that that's.
No, you never want to push a baby through the smallest hole in your body, I don't think.
No.
If I had to guess. But no, I get what you're saying. You're like, wait, again?
Yeah.
And at 30, no.
Yeah, I'm just a little older, a little more creaky. And I think I already went through it once and knew what it felt like and had.
It wasn't great.
Right. And heard that it could be harder the second time around. But, sometimes you do things, that are uncomfortable to get to a different place.
Yes.
And, it was, absolutely worth it. It was meant to be, like I said, but it still doesn't make it a harder decision.
An easy answer. Yeah, totally.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that is the perfect little button up there. The last question is if you could say anything to your matriarch, what would it be?
Yeah, I thought about this. It's really simple. I think I would just say that we did it. Because I feel like her goal was to make sure that, she was there and raising me and I got that degree. And she knew Scott got to spend, quite a few years with her and she loved him so much. And she wanted us to be married and have kids.
I'm getting so weepy. I don't know why that caught me so off guard.
I'm holding it in.
It's so sweet.
I had to think about this. But yeah, we did it.
She's so proud of you guys.
Yeah, I know she is. I know she's here and she's soaking it all in too.
100%. She's right there in that chair.
Yeah.
Wondering why you're wearing your love ring.
Yes, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Thank you.
Yes,
that was
thank you.
Such a treat. Thank you for being here. How special. I leaned back, sorry. If you want to see more of Chelsea, I'm literally crying. That's so sweet. You can follow her on Instagram at Chelsea Bird with 2 Ds.
Yes.
Follow her jewelry line, The Family Jewel.
A Family Jewel Jewelry.
Family Jewel Jewelry.
On Instagram.
You're right.
Yeah.
Family Jewel Jewelry. And it's JUEL
Yeah.
Jewelry. Her husband's at Citizen HD. He's got amazing wood home decor. I was like, anything else we need to plug? You can see it all in her. Find her on LinkedIn. I don't know, just connect. But follow her and see her beautiful life. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be here.
What a delight. Love you. Bye, guys. Have a great week.
Bye.